Hey YouTube, I wanted to do a slightly different type of video today. We're 10 best of 3 drafts in to the Arena High Powered Cube, and I'm a big fan of looking at my 17 lands data throughout the course of drafting. And at 10 drafts, you officially are able to see yourself on the leaderboard for all of the different stats. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about how we've done so far. Here you can see all 10 of my events. 17 Lands is great for showing you the colors you played, and you can actually re-review every draft you did, so you can look at every pick you took, and you can even replay your games. Now, I have my games recorded, but if you want to get better at Magic, one of the best ways to do so is to review the games you played and the drafts you did to see if there's anything you could have done that would have either won the game or changed the outcome of your draft. So far, we started off really strong with a 2-1 into 2 3-0s, and then from there, we've been dabbling between 2-1 and 1-2 for most of our drafts. We've been doing pretty well in terms of color distribution, as you can see, although green is still our least played color. An important thing to note is one of our most recent 1-2 drafts got cut off in the third game, and we took an automatic loss for it. I mark that as a 1-1, but of course 17 lands does not, so it's a 1-2. And one of our other drafts, the most recent 2-1, was from a botched draft where we actually had a couple key picks taken for us by Magic the Arena, and we were still able to turn it around and go 2-1. If you haven't seen that video is on my channel as of yesterday, and it's a crazy one. Let's get into the leaderboards and see where we sit. Right now, on the leaderboard for Vintage Cube Traditional, we're sitting at rank 163 for win percent. We have a 63.3% win percent across all of our games. That's not bad. I've done better in some previous sets, but with the Vintage Cube having super high variance, this is about where I expect it to be as a consistent drafter. Now, as a completely free-to-play drafter, we have not logged nearly as many wins total as some of the big drafters in the format, but given that we've done a full 10 drafts, we're able to see ourselves on the leaderboard here. We also have a trophy rate of 20%. The trophy rate is how often you get the maximum number of wins in a format. For Vintage Cube, that's 3-0. In our 10 drafts so far, we've gone 3-0 twice, which is a little bit lower than I average. I average around 22 to 23%, but with only 10 drafts so far, 20 is right around where we'd expect to be. As you can see, if we actually sort by this metric for percentage of times that we trophy, our rank actually goes up to 144. Now, I have ranged from being in the top 10 to being not even on the leaderboard for a variety of formats. Every format's different. Some formats are also just more in line with my skill set and what I like to draft. But so far, I've been having a lot of fun. So I wanted to take a moment and just do a check-in on the data so people can see where we sit. Going back to my event history, I can see that my overall win rate and percentages have gone down as the Vintage Cube has gone on, but that's mainly spurred by the fact that we started off way hotter than we normally do for a format with those 2 3-0s. 3 events in, if I was able to look at my data, I would have been 2-1, 3-0, and 3-0 for an outstanding win rate of 8-1. That is not a sustainable win rate for most players, and as a result, we've come back down to earth essentially. 17 Lands also lets you look at your most drafted cards. If we ignore rarity and color, since packs don't really have rarity for this cube, and the color picks, we've played a pretty good distribution of them and not really enough drafts to look at one color in particular, we can see that our most drafted cards, we have 5 cards that we've drafted in 4 out of our 10 drafts. And those are Currency Converter, Sage of Skies, Psychic Frog, and Fiery Confluence and Lion Sash. I rate all 5 of these cards very highly for the decks they go in and their colors. I think in particular the one that stands out to me is Lion Sash. Since we're playing in best of 3, I rate this card significantly higher as it's both a good play in many decks, but also an impeccable sideboard card. It's also important to note that we've gotten 3 Mox Pearls in our 10 drafts, easily our most seen piece of power, and since we're always taking power when we see it, those metrics are simply going to be RNG based off of what we open. I do want to call out that for most formats, I end up making a tier list around this point in the format once I've played at least 10 full drafts of it. However, for cubes on Magic the Gathering Arena, 17 Lands does not currently offer an ability to make a tier list. I also think a tier list for the Vintage Cube and Vintage Cube adjacent formats tends to be around where people expect. There's a whole bunch of cards that are situational, and it's pretty hard to rate them. I still would if it was available on 17 lands, but since it's not, we're just going to have to wait for Atla before I make my first tier list of the channel. As a final note, if you've never used 17 lands before and you're a fan of either tracking your own data or just data in general, I highly recommend it. It's a free application, it is not invasive at all, and it has no impact on your actual drafts. It just basically records your drafts and gives you data afterwards. This is one of my favorite charts that they produce. It's called the draft metagame. If you're not quite sure what you're looking at, this is every single card in the cube represented by a single blue line. The numbers on the left dictate the average point at which that card is picked in the draft per pack. What this means is you can look at this card to see when a card is open, how early is it being drafted, and you may want to adjust either your picks or make decisions based off of what cards other people value based off of this chart. Unsurprisingly, that top kind of tier of cards are all power. Cards that go in every deck and are basically never passed and are always taken pick one. From left to right shows the time period the draft was available, so you're also able to see if people's opinions about cards have shifted over the course of a draft. One thing that I found when looking through this data is the almost like surgence of white and red cards being taken higher, as some of the more combo cards, which were taken as pick 2 or pick 3 in a lot of drafts in the first couple of days, have moved down in the tier list. Most notably, I think, is Comet, which has risen by almost an entire pick and is on the up and up still. It may be good enough to be picked as a pick 2, even in first packs. This is an important note that this does not take into account which pack the card was opened, so you would expect to see more committal multicolor cards to be on average picked much later, because when they're opened in pack 3, you often are passing them unless you're already in the colors. However, Comet is kind of defying that. If you liked this 17 lands analysis of our draft, please let me know. I intend to do one of these for every format around the point where I have data for it, and then maybe some shorter form of a final review when the format ends to see where we ended up. Super excited to see I'm on the leaderboard for both the metrics I care about, which is match win percentage and trophy win percentage, since as a free to play player, I'm never keeping up with some of the big dogs that are just absolutely drafting this set into oblivion, which I'm super excited for them, but I simply just don't have the time or the resources available to do that quite yet. In the meantime, I'll see you on the next draft, and thanks for watching.